I'm Shourish. I'm working with Dr. Tara Ved. And as a part of this project, this bigger project, we are doing a cost benefit analysis of using cover crops in citrus production. So our primary objective is to provide a short-term analysis of using cover crops in citrus groves. So we do a partial budget analysis of using cover crops in citrus and then compare the break-even prices from using cover crops, uh, compare the break-even prices to the historical prices in terms of uh, dollar per pound solid and dollar per box using the historical data from FDOC. So citrus is very important, of course, in Florida, and citrus industry had in 2019 more than $6 billion of economic impact, then supported over 33,000 jobs. And also oranges are the top agricultural product of Florida with over $800 million in value and 51% of the total US production. Now, there are several challenges. I won't go over them because it has already been covered by the team members earlier. Challenges from pests and natural disasters. The key objectives of the industry, of the citrus industry, are sustainable production and profitability. So if you look at the past data, we see that citrus production has consistently decreased since the emergence of HLB in 2004-5 in Florida. And in fact, in 2017-18, California had a higher production of citrus than Florida, after which the Florida production has caught up. This is primarily because of the Hurricane Irma, and production and acreage have almost halved since 2005-6 in Florida. Now, there is no cure for HLB, and therefore one size fits all strategy will not work. However, there are ways to manage HLB. So there are various ways of managing HLB from the scientific point of view, and cover crops is a significant one of them, significant way to cope with HLB because it provides, it makes, it improves soil quality significantly. Now, possible, so the direct benefits they provide possible mitigation of symptoms associated with HLB, and cover crops primarily provide improved growing conditions that strengthen trees. Now, I won't go over the cover crop benefits because they have been extensively covered by the professors earlier. Now, what could be some of the cover crop adoption barriers faced by the growers? Now, there could be uncertainty regarding initial costs or owning or renting a specialized equipment such as a no-till seeder, a no-till drill. And also, there could be an information barrier on what is the exact mix of cover crops to be used, because they vary by the grove. The soil quality or the growing conditions would vary by grove. Then others like benefits, sustainability, waiting period, and all. They have all been covered extensively earlier. Now, our objective is to start with the baseline costs of cover crops, which were calculated by Dr. Ariel Singerman. He is a professor at CREC, and he created the IFAS budgets for a 10-year-old grove. Now, to that average costs, we add additional costs of cover crops obtained from growers and account for savings from using cover crops. Now, the savings are short-term savings, 1-year savings. We will be looking at longer-term savings, say 5-year or 10-year savings later on, because those will be determined, for example, by the impacts on yield or quality later on. And also, we have separate production costs for Valencia and non-Valencia oranges. Now, then for the next step, what we do is we calculate break-even prices in terms of dollar per box and dollar per pound solids. Then prices are calculated for yield, and quality scenarios. And these scenarios of yield and quality are in turn calculated from NAS and FDOC data. Now I'll go over the trends in the next few slides, and it's done for both Valencia and non-Valencia oranges. Then what we do is we compare the calculated break-even prices to the historical prices. Now, if the break-even prices are lower than the historical prices, there will be profitability of using cover crops in citrus production. And we obtain these historical prices from the FDOC field reports for dollar per box, dollar per pound solids, and then we discuss the scenarios and put them into context. Now, cover crop cost, yeah. So for the production, we have considered this as the per acre cost, which is around 19, very close to $2,000. It's an average of 2019-20 and 2018-19 data from Dr. Singerman's studies, and then to that we have added other cost sources which we obtained after discussions with 3 growers who have used cover crops in citrus production. Now around 50 to 80 pounds per acre of cover crops are used for optimum germination. Therefore, I have used 65 pounds per acre, which is the average. Then the mix of legume and non-legumes, which are based on the studies conducted by Dr. Sarah and others in the team. And the average cost of the mix I got from the Hancock Seed Company, which roughly translates to $1.225 per acre. And then the total cost of seeds is around $80 per acre per application. Average, yeah. So to that I have added, say for example, fuel cost, then labor cost, which I obtained from discussions with growers, and also the no-till drill seeder. I obtained the rental cost online, which is around roughly $20 per acre per application, and other costs are assumed to be around $5 per acre per application, and there are 2 applications per year. And so the short-term savings, yeah. No, total cost of seeds is no. This is no. This should be per pound. This is per pound. This is my mistake. Yeah. So if you multiply this to 65, yeah. If you multiply this to 65, then it's $80 per acre. So that's a mistake actually. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. So 65 into 1.225. So 80 pounds per acre. Yeah. Sorry about that for the typo. And the short-term savings are considered from reduced mowing, as was discussed extensively by Dr. Ramdas earlier. Not mowing the cover crops would be very beneficial for weed suppression, and that's the only short-term saving that I've considered. I haven't considered, say, for example, reduced herbicide usage and all, because I suppose those benefits will accrue over time. Yeah. So to this number, I have added these numbers that I discussed earlier, and total cover crop cost comes to around $220 per acre, and the savings from cover crops is 75.47, approximately $75 per acre, which is from reduced mowing, and therefore the net cost is around 2,133. So this is like 6.7% of total production cost, and or roughly 7.2 or 7.3% increase from the baseline cost. This, as I earlier said, this is a 1-year analysis, and 3 to 4 year analysis will include savings from reduced herbicides, net savings from exact changes in yields and quality, which will accrue later on. And also exact costs will depend on grove specific practices. Now let's look at the trends in yield and quality indicators before calculating the break-even prices. Now, if you look at the historical prices, this is for Valencia and this is for non-Valencia oranges. In terms of yield, the variability in yield is much higher than the variability in pound solids per box. And for Valencia oranges, there has been a consistent decrease since 2011-12. However, for non-Valencia oranges, it went down. Its minimum was in 2017-18 during the Hurricane Irma season, and after that, it has been increasing. Also, in terms of boxes per acre, the yield has increased, and the yields are comparable. The last two, I would say 2018-19 and 19-20 yields are comparable to those from 2013-14 to 2015-16 through 2016-17 yields. And also the quality in terms of pound solids per box are comparable to those from 2015 through 2017 for both Valencia and non-Valencia oranges. Now, these are important because this will give us what will be the most appropriate scenario to compare the break-even prices to. Okay. Now, what we have done is using these historical prices, the last 10 years of last 10 years of yield and quality data, we have created 5 kind of quartiles with lowest, medium or median, and highest, as well as 25% quartile just from those 10 data points, and 75% quartile. This is for both yield as well as quality. Now, these are for various yield and quality quartiles. We have calculated the delivered in prices in terms of dollar per pound solids and in terms of dollar per box. Then after calculating those, we compare these prices to the price as week of delivery FDOC data, which again has been increasing, of course, since 2010-11 through 2019-20 for both dollar per box as well as dollar per pound solids. Then we do this for both the Valencia oranges as well as the non-Valencia oranges. Okay. So now if we look at this table, we see that at median quartile and median yield, at median quartile, both yield and quality quartiles, we see that, for example, the break-even price is around $2.23 per $2.23 in terms of dollars per pound solids. Now that price is comparable to the prices in the last 3 years of data, the last 3 years of price data, which is from 2017 through 2020. This indicates that at median, or like for example medium quality and yield scenario, it would be profitable to include cover crops in citrus production. Moreover, if we look at even minimum or quartile 1, which is we know that in 2019-20 season, the quality was so dollar pound solids for per box was 5.9. So even if we are producing at 5.9 pound solids per box, at median yield, the price is 2.39, which is in fact lesser than the highest price recorded, which was in 2018-19 season. Now, so it could be profitable at the median yield scenario to include cover crops in citrus production for Valencia oranges. Now, if we look at the non-Valencia oranges, the effect is not as pronounced as Valencia oranges. Now, for non-Valencia oranges, it would be profitable to produce at the median yield and median quality quartiles, because the price is around 2.34, which is lower than the highest price that was recorded in the 2016-17 season. However, that price is higher than the last 3 years of prices that were recorded, like which is from 2017 through 2020. So therefore, including cover crops in production of non-Valencia oranges could be less profitable in terms of this analysis compared to including cover crops for production for Valencia oranges. So to summarize, net additional cost in citrus production with cover crops is around $144.53 per acre, which is 7.3% increase and around 6.8% of total production cost. And then at higher yield and quality quartiles, break-even prices are comparable to the pre-2016-17 season prices, which indicates that it could be profitable, or it would be economically feasible to include cover crops in citrus production. Now, this was in terms of short term, which is a 1 year analysis. In the longer term, say for example 3 to 5 years or more than 5 years, assuming cover crops improves quality by 1 to 2 quartiles from, say for example 2019-20 levels, or say for example between 2.7 to 7% for Valencia oranges, or 1 to 6% for non-Valencia oranges, corresponding break-even prices at median yield are comparable to the last 4 years of market prices, which are like including the increased yield and quartile and quality after like post 3 or 5 years of adoption of cover crops. Then profits at median yield quality scenario for both Valencia and non-Valencia oranges could be positive, since break-even prices are lesser than the peak prices that were observed in 2016-17 or 18-19 respectively. So to summarize, it would be economically feasible practice to include in citrus production. However, as Dr. Ramdas just mentioned earlier in his closing statement, like I guess producers have to be patient because the benefits accrue over time, and longer term benefits would be more pronounced than short term benefits, and longer term savings would be more would be higher, much higher than the short term savings. So so I would like to acknowledge CRDF as the source of funding, and then Dr. Sarah, Dr. Ramdas, Dr. Devi, Dr. Taraved, and others for their guidance and help. So any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Any questions for Dr. Shourish? Wait, let's.
I'm a little confused. Davey said there was no significant difference in yield or yield quality.
Right.
So I'm not sure what you're saying about offering prices and giving some kind of benefit to cover crops through the yield and fruit production.
Right. In the short term, there won't be any benefits. That's what I've done. I've shown the results for the first year of including cover crops. So I haven't assumed that there will be increase in yields or quality in the first year, but after 3 to 5 years of production, there could be increase in yields or quality, and it would be more sustainable to use cover crops in production.
But so the research hasn't shown that yet.
No, Fritz, I would call this like a what if analysis, like if this is the scenario, then you can make a profit, but growers will have to decide for themselves if this is something they can accomplish and if they'd want to use cover crops. But it's just the benchmark you'd have to meet for this to be profitable.
Right, but then Ramdas's presentation said that you could probably eliminate herbicide, not just
yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
But what I've done is I've kept the herbicide costs because herbicides are used in row middles as well as under the trees. So I've considered that they are used under the trees, but for row middles, because it's the first year, as Dr. Ramdas said, it reduces, it suppresses. So weeds wheat growth is like 15% of the original. I suppose maybe Dr. Ramdas can answer that better than me. So there will be some wheat suppression, but in future there will be more.
Yeah, so I will add to what Shourish was saying. I think this is not going to change our under tree herbicide program, right? So this we are focusing on the raw middle, and raw middle, depending on the growers and the locations and the grows, there may be herbicides going in. Some are 100% of mowing. Sometimes they bring in chemicals. Even if chemicals, it's a sublethal dose, very low rate of herbicide. So that's one thing. But again, here in cover cropping, as I mentioned, it's not 100% herbicide free operation. It's a sustainable operations, but we have to bring in herbicides from time to time for land preparation, termination, things like that. So that's where I think the gray area is, whether we need to, whether herbicide cost is a big component is a question that we need to take a more look on. But anyway, this is not going to see the under tree program.
Any other question from the Zoom area? Thank you again, Shourish.
Thank you.